Hey everyone, and welcome to Instrumental Adventure! Exclamation mark. Some time ago I started to work on a music project. It's a long instrumental piece of music with two parts of 20 minutes each. The idea is to have it all hand played and mostly with acoustic instrument. It will be recorded track by track, so I'll first play a little bit of piano. There's gonna be some acoustic guitar, classical guitar with nylon string, electric guitar, bass guitar, fretless bass guitar, some glockenspiel, some harp, some zither, I believe it's called, some percussions like this tiny tambourine. There will also be some guest musicians for all the instruments I can't play, which are many. Musically, it's not going to be very complicated, but hopefully the structure will make it interesting. Emotionally as well, it's going to be quite a journey. We're going to start from a little bit of mystery, then go to some drama, all sorts of emotions, but it ends well. So it's going to be quite a ride with lots of adventures and drama, but I promise it ends well on an uplifting note. Now that one thing we all have is time, I thought it might be a good idea to document how I went about it. The writing, the recording, the producing, the arranging, the mixing, all the different phases of creating this piece of music. Today we're going to start with talking about the writing process and mostly about the very simple sequence of music that is at the base of the whole 40 minutes. It should also be noted that apparently I have a French accent. In my head I actually sound like a British BBC anchorman, but it has been brought to my attention that it's not the case. If you do notice that, be not distressed. You might still find this video series entertaining. The whole piece is based on a very simple sequence of music. Repeat. So the whole 40 minutes of music is going to be based on this sequence of music. Now, it's not going to be experimental 20th century contemporary music where I just repeat the same thing for 40 minutes. There's going to be variations on speed, which instrument is playing it, the arrangements, the little bit the melody, but everything revolves around this sequence of music. The introduction is going to be like this. So here we have a mood that's a little bit mysterious because we're playing these 16 notes, which are that main sequence, and a repetitive bass line. But because we don't change the note of the bass line and change the melody, we're creating some interesting harmonies. Now the awesome thing is that we can play the exact same melody but change the note we play in the bass, and that completely changes the mood. And so straight away the atmosphere changes. Suddenly we have more of a surge of emotion, something a little bit uplifting. So whereas the first one was more mysterious, now the second one very different atmosphere. All of that with the same notes. And so that's one way we can have variation with the same melody. And what that enables us to do is that we can have consistency throughout the whole piece of music. We're going to have something that feels familiar because we're using the same pattern or the same sequence with some variations. But as we listen to the piece of music, to the whole 40 minutes, it's going to feel like a good friend that we keep coming back to or hearing back from. We're going to listen, maybe it's going to go into a different direction, but then we're going to hear the familiar sequence and we'll be like, oh, I recognize this one. Oh, now I recognize this thing from the beginning of the piece. And that's what I find interesting in the structure, something that evolves naturally, but there's something recognizable and something we can relate to. Another variation we can do is have the same little melody, but in between each note we can add more notes. This is the original. Now I will play the same, but in between each note there's going to be more notes, and that will create what feels like another melody. And if I play this with the left hand, here straight away we have something more dynamic, a bit more epic. So that's why it's going to take us on a very nice adventure. Let's have a look now at how we can have the same melody played by a different instrument. So we're going to have the same basic melody. But played on the guitar with the characteristic of the guitar, it can have a more interesting texture to it. So maybe something like this. So it's the same melody, but because of the characteristic of the instrument, in this case the guitar, it has a different feel to it as well. And that's another way where we can have a variation on that same sequence. We could also have the same chords, so the same basic harmony, take that same structure and play it a little bit higher. So instead of... now we can have... Here again we have something more mysterious, because we have a straight bass line and a changing melody over that constant bass line. That's what we did for the introduction on the piano, but we can have the same thing with the guitar as well and have yet another variations. Here's another example of the same melody and the same sequence played with yet another instrument, this time the harp. You're gonna have to forgive my harp playing, which is currently at level -2000, but hopefully for the purpose of the video that'll be enough. And now the same thing, but the different bass line, the same as I played on the piano, the one that's a bit more uplifting, but the melody will be the same. it's the same melody and the same chord progression, because it's played on a different instruments, it has a different quality to it, and it feels like we're listening to something a little bit different, but familiar. And that's what we want to have, something you listen to, and it takes you on a journey, and really enjoying taking our time. So the next step, now that we've looked at a little bit of the writing, will be to go on Mr. Computer over there and look at the structure this time, put everything together, a kind of little mock-up, before we start to do actual recording. I hope you found this first episode interesting. If so, please don't hesitate to subscribe or like or share the video if you know anyone who might find this entertaining and useful. And I look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Take care and bye for now.